Okay, so diabetic, bloated, drowning in medical debt, electric cart in Walmart Americans are really concerned about a country they can't find on a map. Their profile pic says, I stand with Ukraine. They're finally taking a stand against Hollywood Russian villains from the 80s movies. USA, USA. So this is all that's very insightful and said it in joke form, but he's right about that. So these people, you really think they're going to give a care about a country they can't find on a map? So how do you make them care? Well, you tell them the guy who overthrew our election and gave us Trump is also worse than Hitler. You make him out to be worse than Hitler. Joe Biden's got a much bigger body count than Putin, probably will ever have, but somehow this guy's worse. So this is what Maddow blog tweeted this out. One difference between Putin and Hitler is that Hitler didn't kill ethnic Germans, German-speaking people. Putin slaughters the very people he has said he's come to liberate. So that's just straight up propaganda. You're telling me that German-born Jews didn't speak German? And they weren't really German? That's what they're saying. So, by the way, Rachel Maddow coming out of retirement. They tracked her down like John Rambo in the jungle. She was just skinning snakes and sharpening metal. Rachel, we need you to help start a war. And there she is. Bam. And so listen to the guy say it.
And I want to just say one other thing. I was just on Ukrainian television just 30 minutes ago. Brave journalists, just like our team covering the war there in Kiev. And one of the commentators said something interesting about how horrific this war is. And remember, these are people who suffered under fascism, that fought the Nazis. As the Nazis came and then the Red Army came back through. One of the Russian journalists said, there's one difference between Hitler when he was coming in and Putin. Hitler didn't kill ethnic Germans. He didn't kill German-speaking people. I think people need to remember that when we're talking about cities like Kharkiv and Mariupol and Kiev, there are large populations there, up to a third and sometimes as much to a half that are Russian speakers and are ethnic Russians. And yet Putin doesn't seem to care about that. He slaughters the very people he said he has come to liberate.
So I guess the gays and the Jehovah's Witnesses and the communists and any other German who wasn't pro-Nazi, I guess they weren't really German, according to him. And it's pretty convenient how that works, right? If Hitler killed someone, they weren't German. That's basically what he's saying. That's very handy. Kind of like in Afghanistan, where we classified legal combatants as any male over the age of 15, so we could blow them up with killer robots indiscriminately. Oh, wait, that's another thing Hitler never did. Hitler wasn't even as bad as half the Democrats who wanted to put the unvaxxed in internment camps and take away their children. Oh, no, wait, sorry, actually, they're about the same, I guess. They're about the same. Aaron, would you like to come in? Would you like to comment on that?
Look, this guy is the top so-called Russia expert on MSNBC. He's on like basically 24 hours a day. He's always on. The only person in second place is Alexander Vindman. Remember him, the guy who was the hero of the Trump impeachment, where he somehow was this brave hero because he wanted to ensure that Ukraine continued to be flooded with weapons without interruption. That was his big crusade. So yeah, this is who Ambassador McFaul is. He was Obama's ambassador to Russia. A major reason why we're in this crisis today. He's been a huge proponent of the policy of using Ukraine as cannon fodder in a proxy war with Russia that drastically escalated when the Obama administration backed a coup in Ukraine in 2014. And then he was the kind of person who was begging Obama to send Ukraine more weapons, ironically, to arm Nazis, who Michael McFaul is also now whitewashing. So Michael McFaul not only whitewashes neo-Nazis in Ukraine, but the original Nazis too. He's full spectrum Nazi whitewasher.
And if you're gonna praise Hitler, at least be accurate. He loved animals. He was a better painter than George W. Bush, and he never built biolabs in Ukraine. Stuff like that. Stuff like that, you could say. So I like this tweet by Gritty is the Way. It says, normalizing Ukrainian Nazis wasn't bad enough. Liberals have moved on to praising Hitler. That's exactly what's happening. So that's how they manufacture your consent for this war in a country that you couldn't give a shit about. Is you tell, oh, this guy is worse than Hitler and he's killing people, and but it's the same guy overthrew our election. So here's Anders Ashland says, piling up the arguments, Putin appears far worse than Hitler. Hitler pursued his genocide against Jews. Putin does so against Ukrainians. He is starting a new genocide. So that guy, his name is Anders Ashland. He's a Swedish economist. He's a leading expert on transitioning from centralized economies to something. The point is, he obviously knows what he's saying is a lie. But that's how you manufacture consent, baby. Are you surprised to see someone like that say something like that, or is that this is just no, part for the course, right?
You know why, Jimmy? He's a senior fellow, and whenever you hear that title, a senior fellow somewhere, it should ring alarm bells. But he's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, which is basically NATO's lobby inside Washington. Gets a lot of money from Ukrainian far right nationalists and their supporters, and arms manufacturers and everybody else who profits off of the using Ukraine as cannon fodder against Russia. He also, Jimmy, I don't know if you caught this one where he said that at least Hitler didn't use chemical weapons. He said that too, which is just absolutely insane when you know what Hitler actually did.
Right.
I mean, these people are
Hitler
are
gassed.
nuts,
they gassed everybody and pay no attention to the showers, and then they would gas them.
Exactly right. So, but this is the level. This is how insane these people are, that they're willing to deny Hitler's atrocities and whitewash them if it means whitewashing and manufacturing consent for a war against Russia.
Here's some more. So this was tweeted out by Pawn and Peasant. Says, we are now fully in the post-truth era. We have embraced feelings over facts. And these are the people manufacturing consent for war. And the two tweets they show is this guy named John Spencer. He says, this makes me very sad, like I am not doing enough. I have girls this age, this girl here. We, the world, must do more to help Ukraine. I understand all the political and escalation lines. I don't care. We can and must do more. And just to summarize my responses to some of the messages I'm receiving about this image, no, I don't care where it was actually taken. No, I don't care if it was staged. This image invokes a feeling in me about the Ukraine-Russian war. That's all. It motivates me to do more. Wow. This isn't about what's true. This is about how I feel now, which will change on a dime when I'm told to feel about something else. But for now, this is my main thing because someone's telling me to make this my main thing. Again, this is another guy who knows better, and so you know he's deliberately lying to get a war going. Or he's auditioning to be part of the consent manufacturing apparatus. Let's see. Oh, he'll be on MSNBC tonight at 5 Mountain Time, 7 Eastern, to discuss the Russian-Ukraine. Well, son of a bitch, he got the part. Way to go. Good audition. And he got it. Aaron, would you like to comment on that guy? Doesn't care if this is a hoax, if this is a fake thing, or if it doesn't have anything to do with Ukraine. It makes him feel a certain feeling. Holy.
Well, look, that's an honest expression of the attitude of every single primetime MSNBC or CNN cable news host who, no matter what the facts were about Russiagate, for example, that didn't stop them from lying every single night because they felt that this was important to them. They felt a part of that cause. And that's how consent is manufactured. So I appreciate him at least being honest about his complete duplicity. It's refreshing.
It is. So this is a good point. Not to mention yet again the glorification of the idea of child soldiers. Wrong when the black guys did it. Cool when the white guys do it. How very DNC. Yeah. Well, girl soldiers still only make about 3/4 of what a boy soldier makes, so that could be what he was worried about. You don't know. Here's a great tweet. As the plausibility gap shrinks, the populace entrenches in extremes. Empathy is forced out until logic serves no purpose. Weak minds and the corrupt become most vocal, while the knowledgeable are ridiculed and silenced. Public demonstrations of unquestionable loyalty are encouraged. So this is what happens during war, and that was amazingly well said. I had to read it 3 times just so I could understand it. But it's really well said. Empathy is forced out until logic serves no purpose. So that there was no logic to what that guy. I don't care that it doesn't make any sense, and I would show you a picture of a girl that has nothing to do with the Ukraine and then make it have something to do with the. I don't care that there's no logic to that. You got to have empathy for this, which makes you then be pro-war. Weak minds and the corrupt become the most vocal, and that's exactly same thing with mandates. Same thing with the weak minds and the corrupt are the most vocal, and that's where we find ourselves. Let's go to this next one. Putin could unleash biological weapons from seized Ukraine lab. Experts fear. That's in the Daily Mirror. Now, I was told that the biolabs in Ukraine weren't doing any chemical weapons. So what are you guys? So get your propaganda lie straight. So they're telling the lie both ways. The first lie was they said Ukraine didn't have any biological labs that did biological weapons. And then Victoria Nuland admitted they did have biological labs. And then she said she's worried about the Russians taking over those labs and using the chemical weapons inside them. And it's like, what the F? Get your story straight.
Their story is never straight, Jimmy. Remember, also, we're supposed to simultaneously believe that Ukrainian resistance is crushing the Russian invaders, yes. And that's why we need to give them even more weapons. But also, Putin is poised to invade the rest of Europe next.
Yeah.
On the one hand, he can't even take Ukraine, which is next door, but also he's going to take all of Europe next. And that's why we have to send more weapons to Ukraine.
So Maddow blog, by the way, took down that tweet about praising Hitler. And then this guy came on and said, I made a mistake. I apologized. You made a mistake? You're the expert. And you come on and say something that is beneath Sarah Palin. I apologize. I honestly did not know that Hitler purposely slaughtered ethnic Germans in countries he invaded. That was what we were discussing. I am now learning more and appreciate those who are providing reading suggestions. Thank you for, please, people, could you please recommend I read something? And if you think MSNBC only cheerleads wars right now, like Ukraine, here's the last one. Here's the last time we bombed Syria, by the way, which we're still occupying. We're occupying a third of Syria. Guess which third?
Guess.
Is it the ones with the oil?
I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons, and they are beautiful pictures of fearsome armaments making what is for them a brief flight over to this airfield. What did they hit? What are you convinced?
So that's MSNBC, man. They're beautiful, our weapons. I'm guided by the beauty of them. What did they hit? What? I'm guided by the beauty of a bullet. What did it hit? And let's remember so they want you to think Putin is an irrational maniac, homicidal, chemical weapons guy, worse than Hitler. Imagine if there was a general from the Russian army who said this on an open microphone in front of a camera.
Today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
So go through the countries again?
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
So that was a plan that the United States had drawn up before 2001. And so it was the 9/11 attacks which gave them the opportunity to implement that plan. And son of a bitch, they're trying. So imagine if that was Russia. Imagine if Russia had invaded Iraq and then invaded Libya and then bombed the shit out of Syria and then occupied Afghanistan at the same time for 20 straight fucking years. And then was helping commit a genocide in Yemen. And Somalia were bombing the shit. Imagine if Russia was doing all that as you had a Russian general saying this is their plan. They've already had this plan drawn up. And the fact that that's not played on the news just goes to show you that the news is owned by the military-industrial complex. That shows you that the United States are the homicidal maniacs that they try to claim everyone else is. Does Putin have a plan like that? Is Putin going to plan on taking... No, NATO has been encroaching on Russia for the last 25 fucking years. So I just want you to... I want to remind people of how quick these liars, these pro-war propagandists who manufacture consent will turn on a dime. Here's Ro Khanna, and this is in 2018. He says, ever since Orange Revolution began under President Bush, the U.S. has been complicit in the rehabilitation and spread of neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Enough is enough. Our government must stand up to the Azov Battalion and other fascist groups. And then now, when it would hurt his career to tell the truth about it, he completely backtracks and then McCarthy redbaits reporters. He says the far left's refusal to condemn the immoral and illegal Putin invasion is appalling. It is a nihilistic relativism. I stand by my words in this exchange and reject Max Blumenthal and RT talking points where he's a contributor. So anybody who criticizes Ro Khanna's war manufacturing consent for war is now a Russian. So do you see the kind of garbage people these people are? They're garbage people. Okay, do you have anything you'd like to say about this manufacturing consent episode?
Two things. One is, before Ukraine really blew up, what was the top topic on MSNBC and CNN? It was nonstop about January 6th.
That's right.
And we have to protect ourselves from the Trump Nazis who stormed the Capitol for a few hours. At the same time now, none of these networks can do any serious journalism on the Nazis that are very much embedded inside the Ukrainian armed forces. There's even an entire militia, the Azov Battalion, that's incorporated into the Ukrainian army, making it the only army in the world which officially incorporates a neo-Nazi battalion. That doesn't mean that all Ukrainians are Nazis or the vast majority are Nazis. This is a small percentage of the population, but in the armed forces, they have a very serious role, to the point where a few weeks ago, we covered this. Richard Engel did a media stunt with the Azov Battalion, a neo-Nazi militia, and didn't even probably realize who they were because he's so clueless. So these people scream about Nazis at home, alleged Nazis at home, or one Nazi or racist flag at the trucker protest in Canada, while meanwhile whitewashing an army which has a neo-Nazi militia embedded in it and advocating for send them more weapons. It's just like the hypocrisy is staggering. And on Ro Khanna, he exemplifies, Jimmy, I've never seen Democrats at a more cowardly state in my life. In the 1980s, there was at least some congressional pushback to the Reagan terror wars in Central America, a little bit. That forced Reagan to do things like Iran-Contra because Congress banned direct support to the Contras who were waging a dirty war against the Sandinista movements in Nicaragua. So there was some congressional pushback then from Democrats, including by people like John Kerry. In the 1990s, Dennis Kucinich was there. He was leading sort of advocacy against the U.S. policy in Iraq, which was the criminal sanctions, periodic bombings, and of course the Iraq War. But now, what is there? Ro Khanna goes from calling out neo-Nazis and our support for them to calling for arming that same military that has neo-Nazis embedded inside of it, and then attacking anybody who dares question him on it. By the way, he deleted that tweet, but he didn't apologize, which he should. Yeah.
Well, that's real profile and courage, that Ro Khanna. Hey, we got more dates for our 2022 stand-up tour. We're going everywhere. We're going to Dallas, Houston, Florida, We're going to Omaha, Des Moines, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Ohio, and Los Angeles. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our shows.